outline around that embroidery design?
You can. You can do it a couple of different ways, okay? And it can be like organdy or,
Okay.
you know, something very soft. Or you can even take, when you're doing like shadow work embroidery, you can even take, you know, I'm going to just use a circle. Okay, here's a circle, right? Pretend that's your, you know, your fabric, right? And you can even take, you know, like this and applique that down. And generally when you, you know, applique this down, what you're going to use is going to be a blanket stitch applique. Okay? And,
Okay.
you know, I'm trying to think. I'm just going to go ahead and pretend like, you know, this is the piece of fabric, right? I'm making my applique outline. Okay. So, there's my applique. It's not very neat, but neaten that up just a little bit. Okay, so, you know, there's my applique. The red is my fabric, so we'll change this and make this, you know, a different color, right? Okay, when I go into my settings, if I want to do, you know, this way, you know, where I can do a number of things. I can put fabric underneath and applique it down. But generally what you're going to do is you're going to use that blanket stitch, okay? And, you know, you're going to use a fairly small blanket stitch. You know, think in terms of very dainty, right? So, you know, you're going to do something like that. Miss Nancy's here. Okay, so you're going to do...
I was outside and had... Go ahead.
Oh, that's okay. We're just talking about, this is our review session, so we're talking about shadow work applique. And where we are is, this is, you know, our fabric, the red. And then this blue is our blanket stitch applique. And you can see, you know, it's very dainty and tiny, right?
Right.
And you remember, you could make your own if you want by using the motif and size it any size you want. But, you know, this is going to be very dainty and tiny. Then you would put your organza or your organdy or your, you know, your sheer, like, you know, a lot of times we see organza, it's got that sheen to it. But there's cotton organza and there's organdy that's very thin and frail. And you would put that on top, which would take, you know, this would be the same color, just so you know your outline. It would take this red and mute it down to pink, right? And then what I would do is, you know, you can, let me get rid of these controls because they hide my other controls here. You could do, you know, the triple running stitch, or, you know, you can do just a running stitch if you like, but then you would go very close to this, right? You could use the same color, or you could use a pink, you know, you could use whatever you wanted here.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
You have the applique, and you, when you made that little stitch, did you use one of the, did you make your own?
I just used the quick applique on this one, but, you know, remember last time we talked about making our own little motif so we could control the size better?
Sure.
And, you know, I would do, what you want to do when you're tacking this down is you want to highlight this embroidery. So you could put this very, very close to the applique. All right, I'm just adjusting it. And do it in the pink as well, so that, you know, this is going to highlight pink with that sheer fabric on top. It's going to mute that color. And then you could put the pink on top of it. Or you could do highlight stitches on top as well. Okay? So, you know, here's our, you know, we'll make that pink, right? And we'll make this the same color so that, you know, you kind of understand what I mean. Okay, so you've blanket stitched that down, and that's going to be the effect. You're not going to really see the blanket stitch. That's why it's dainty and petite, right? You're going to see this color, and then you're going to see this outline around it, okay? So that's why you would want to put it close. Does that make a little more sense?
Do you trim the organdy now that you've got it on there?
No, you leave that organdy on top. And the presumption is that you're making something that, you're putting on, kind of frail fabric, or this is going to be, like a hem area, like a wide hem on a child's dress, or, not a real big area. Although you can do it in a big area and have those double layers of fabric, right? But if you trim that organdy at this point, it's going to fray, and it'll be gone in one or two washings.
Okay.
So you
Could
can
you
do
use that stitch that looks like a quilt, like hand quilting?
you could.
I don't know what it's called.
It is called the sculpture line. Okay, and what the sculpture line does,
Yeah.
okay, is, let me zoom in here. I am jello brain today. Okay, what this does, it's hard to see on here, okay, is you're going to use, I'm going to pull this out a little bit. You would use invisible thread, okay, and you're going to crank your tension up, right? But what you have to be careful is if you're cranking your tension up, what's that going to do to that very frail fabric, right? So you're going to have to be careful with this. You can do that stitch if you like. The other thing that you can do, whoops.
Could you do it in
I'm sorry?
Could you do it in a color? I mean, do you have to use invisible thread? You could do it in a color just to get that effect of that type of stitching, though, couldn't you?
What you do
Or
is
it wouldn't show. There wouldn't be anything showing.
well, what you do is you put the color that you want on top in your bobbin. So it's like your sewing machine.
Okay.
You know how it pulls that bobbin thread to the top to make it look like it's hand quilted?
Yeah.
Okay, it's going to do the same thing. So you're going to have to do a little test stitch. And a tip that I can give you is pull the bobbin thread to the top before you start and hold both threads so that first stitch forms well.
So you put your invisible, you thread that through the needle, and you use a bobbin thread, regular bobbin thread, your color that you want on the bobbin.
Yes. And
Gotcha, darling.
And you're better off, you're going to get a much more dramatic effect. Like this is a small area, right? You're going to get a much more dramatic effect if you increase that stitch length, between 3 and 3.5. You're going to get a little more drama. The problem is that you can see it didn't really change much on this, right? Because it's going to have to navigate.
Right.
See my short stitches and my longer stitches. It's going to try to navigate that circle. But that's called the sculpture line. And, the stem stitch line, if you remember, is a little bit different. It's going to be a little bit more bold. Okay.
Yeah.
But that's still dainty enough, and you can make changes to that sculpture stitch. You can control your line thickness. See? Okay, so you have a lot of different stitches. You can even put a motif around it. Like, if you had a basic shape and you wanted to highlight the shape, but you really wanted to, really highlight the shape, right? Let me select that, sorry. There's nothing that says you can't use the motif as well. Either one that you made yourself or, going in and selecting, something from the library, right? Okay, here's the regular library. Here's the black work, and then of course there's the ones that we made. And, the black work, has some interesting little patterns. And this one's pretty, although you have to make that kind of big, right? But I'll show you what it looks like. See, that's very pretty. So, you'd have to adjust, but remember, you can adjust these motifs, right? You can shrink them. Let me select that again. And I am having one of those mouse days. So you can adjust them here, with the nose, right? Adjust that line. You can adjust them with that arrow, except I think I'm going to have to zoom in to get it because it just keeps clicking off of it. Huh. Okay, here's the individual nodes, so you know that you can adjust those. And you look, if you see that point's going on the inside a little bit, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it would give you, you know, very interesting effect. You can also, not sure why it's giving me trouble today grabbing these arrows, but you've got those arrows that are going to let you scale that, right? Worst case, you know, you can go back into your settings, and you can scale the pattern a little bit if you need to. I think I must have moved these around. But, you know, this is a little bit more dramatic than maybe you would want, but, you know, it's kind of an interesting pattern when you look at it at a one-to-one point of view, especially if you want to highlight something.
Mm-hmm.
And it's open and lacy and dainty, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, you can even use that because you've already secured the applique, and then you've got this layer of fabric on top of it. This stitching is to hold the organza in place, and, you know, you can use it to highlight, you know, the item. You know, just remember, you know, sometimes I look at the fabric when I go to do shadow applique, and I think, oh, geez, it's way darker than what I really want, right? But, you know, it does mute it, and it doesn't mute it nearly as much as you think when it's all said and done. Now, generally what you do is you have, you know, like a flower, right? You know, you have a leaf, and I'm just going to draw a quick little leaf. Okay, so there's my leaf, and we'll make that green. And you can see that satin stitching would be way too heavy, right? So that's why, you know, when you pick that blanket stitch, I think the smallest you can go to is 2.5. Okay, so, you know, I've got the green fabric here adhered down, right? And, you know, and then, of course, you know, this is not too bad. This did a pretty good job, except down in here, handling that blanket stitch, see? But that's why, you know, you might want to look at your motif instead. But then I would have, you know, like a flower. So, you know, let me make I'm just going to make kind of a, probably very sorry looking little flower, but... Okay, so there's my flower, right? I personally would not put the hole in the flower because, A, you know, we're going to use a blanket stitch. B, you know, that's going to be really small to cut out, right? Let's see what this does. And see, that's why that...
Since you're using a blanket stitch, since you're using a blanket stitch on that fabric, isn't there some concern about that fabric fraying? I mean, should you put some kind of stabilizer behind it or Wonder Under or whatever to keep that from fraying?
You should put, you know, Wonder Under or some kind of backing. You know, Wonder Under is, you know, like the applique backing, right, where you iron it on.
Right.
You don't, no, you don't necessarily want to take this off the machine and press this into place. You know, you can if you have one of those little tiny irons, right? So you can use Wonder Under and it'll hold it in place.
Right.
But, you know, you can also use a fusible no-show mesh, or a fusible tricot, and then just a little spray, a little sticky spray, and stick it to your fabric, right? But yeah, you should back it with
Right.
something. You know, generally you're going to use a very good quality fabric underneath here. You're not going to use this real loose weave. Like you would be using like a good batiste, right? Or a good quality cotton. And, something to that effect. But yeah, what I do kind of a mix of things. It kind of depends on what's handy, to be honest. If I have the applique backing, sometimes I'll just iron that on. If I can't find my applique backing, I'll use my fusible no-show mesh. And your goal is just to keep the fabric stiff enough, to stitch it down properly. But it does have the added benefit of not allowing that to fray. Now, you could do, we're doing applique with blanket stitch, right? You could still do your applique with the satin. Okay? Your width, you wouldn't want it to be too much wider than that, but then you would want to drop that density down.
I had to excuse myself.
Oh, that's okay. So, you would want to drop that density down just because all you want is to hold it in place, right? That's
Are you doing something different now?
Right.
We're still talking about shadow applique. So I'm going to pretend that my leaf looks so much better than that. But, you kind of get the gist. You've got multiple pieces, right? And you can adhere these either way. Like this applique stitch with the satin looks a little heavier. And let me see if I can, I'm already down pretty low, but, right about maybe 40 to 50%. That's going to lay very flat. And that's what you want. You don't want that raised up necessarily. The goal is not to, so much use your applique stitch as a decorative effect before you put on the, organdy or organza or, the sheer fabric, right? The goal is really just to keep the fabric in place. But if you do something like, like I said, I would not have cut out this hole, to be honest, right? Because that's too small of a hole to cut out, for me. What I would probably do instead is, take a very vivid color that you want to show and, just go ahead and embroider that on, and that'll show through, faintly through, right? Okay, so now we've got like our little flower here, and instead of that hole, we put embroidery on top of it and made our life easier, than having to cut out a complicated applique, right?
Right.
So now I'm going to put my fabric on top. And what I can do at this point is, I can highlight this in green, right? And I'm going to use a very mint green. Okay, so I can highlight this leaf in green, and I can do a couple of different things. I could actually put detail in it at this point. I could, divide the leaf and, and outline it, right?
Right.
And how'd you get the outline on there?
What I did was I just traced around it basically with, manually punching. Okay? So let me kind of do that a little bit better. You can put as much detail as you want in there. And I'm just going to pick a really loud color that you can see, so I'm picking blue. So, maybe you want to put like the center leaf in there, right? So, you could come down here and you could add as much detail as you want here. But, ultimately, you're going to want to trace around this just to highlight and detail it and get your fabric, kind of tied into place, right? So you've got this shadowy applique underneath this now, right? And you've got this stitch over top of it that's going to highlight that shape. And the same thing with the flower. Like, I can be as decorative with the flower as I want. And, you've got this little shape here, so, why not highlight that shape as well? And, you know, you could do anything you want with this. Like, you know, if you really wanted to, you know, highlight that, you could come in and you could say, you know what, I don't know that I need a triple run line, but, you know, I think that, you know, maybe a little satin line would be nice. You know, and I don't need it this wide. I just need it a little bit. And, you know, drop my density down and have a little tiny satin stitch there too. Most of the time it's running stitches, but the other thing that you can do is, you know, you don't have to just stick to the shadow applique. You know, you can come in here and you can say, you know, this is going to have like a little vine going over to the next flower, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, you can add, whoops, not what I wanted. You can add like little leaves here, right? You can do whatever you want. You don't have to just stick with, you know, the basic, here's your shadow applique. This is all going to highlight this, you know, and you're going to use very muted little colors here, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, you could even put little rosettes or something along this. You don't have to just have your applique and then cover it and that's it. You know, this is going to give it some, you know, highlight, a little mystery here, some highlight, and then that's going to also hold that fabric down, you know, those two layers of fabric together, right? Because you're not going to, you know, you have your base fabric, you're putting the applique on it, which is a deeper, you know, brighter color, and then the sheer fabric on top. So, you know, picture doing like cuffs on, you know, a shirt. You know, that would be a small example. So you have these, your shirt, and then you have these highlighted cuffs or a collar, something to highlight, or, you know, a front panel on one side or something, or the hem of a skirt, right? Or the hem of your shirt even. You know, it's not intended to be like the whole garment. It's really intended to just be, you know, small sections like, you know, you've seen the heirloom dresses, right, with just those small sections, right?
Right.
Okay, now,
Yes.
if you wanted to, you could be very, very detailed and do something like, you know, a big piece of fabric where, you know, you're making those big flowers that we did, right? And then you're putting the organza over top of it and stitching it. But let me see if I can draw a semi-decent flower freehand here.
Sure you can.
Nancy has so much more faith in me than I do. Okay, let me see. We want to do the contour
I
film.
just wish I could borrow your brain.
My brains are tired lately. So, you know, if I want to, oh, I forgot I was in satin stitch. So if I want to make like a flower petal, right? So here's my sorry flower petal because it's not very round, Nancy. Hold on. There, I'll make it better. How's that?
Beautiful. Prettier than mine.
Okay, so there's my flower petal. And I'll tweak this a little bit. Okay, so if you don't always have to, when you're doing shadow applique, okay, you don't always have to put fabric underneath it. You know, that's kind of the traditional way of doing it, right? But, you know, whoops, wrong thing, hold on.
I just wish I had the command of the stuff like what you do.
You know what, I'm used to doing it, although my mouse is driving me crazy at this point. You know, and I spend a lot of time in the programs. You know, I mean, it's like anything else. The more time you spend in it, the more comfortable you'll get with it, right?
Leave me alone.
What am I going to do with you, Nancy? Okay, ready? Now we're going to use one of the tools that we kind of covered before. I just want to get this straightened out. Well, I'm batting 1,000 on this, straightening it out. I guess that looks pretty good. Okay, so now here's my flower petal, right? And if I want this to show pink, I'm going to make it, you know, red, right? I'm going to make it some very dark color or darker, you know. Even that, you know, that this color would probably show through that wild pink. And then, you know, I could do something like this array. And Nah, I don't want to merge them. Okay, so there's my flower, right? And this would be, you know, I would probably put something in the center on top of this, but this would be what's underneath. And I'm going to resize that a little bit. You know, what would be underneath that sheer fabric, right? So, you know, this is a pretty bold flower.
That would be really pretty.
Right.
Yes, it would
A
be.
very bold flower underneath, right? So you've got this bold flower underneath, and you've got a tool that, you know, when you're making a shape, you know, you've got a tool like these pieces are all, you know, individual pieces, but you do have a tool that you can use if you're worried about outlining, and that is, remember the echo, that offset? So if you want to offset, you know, how much do we want to offset? I have that at a negative. I would probably put this, I might leave that at, you know, like a negative 10, right? Offset count 1, or, you know, hey, let's put this at 0.01, and, you know, let's make this offset a little bolder, and, you know, these I can move around. Okay, see these outlines? Actually, it's just easier to grab these and move them. Make sure I got them all. Nope. Okay, so, you know, you might have some jumps, but, you know, if it's just for you, you know, why, jumps are no big deal, right? So here is my outline. And I can change that. I'm going to make that a different color just so you can see it. My outlines are very close to each other because remember I put 0.1. They look like they're right on top of each other. But they're actually, you know, really, really, really close to each other. Or you could just do one and do, you know, like a double or triple, right? So,
what do you do automatically to put the outline?
Oh, hold on. I'll show you again. I'm going to group these real quick. Okay, if I group this together and I go up to here, see my offset object?
Where is it? I don't see where you are.
Okay.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Okay, there's my offset object, right?
Okay.
I had this at an offset of, you know, 0.1. I'm going to put this at 0, and I'm just going to do it once. Okay, so now I've got this embroidered. I put my fabric on top of it, and I make this outline. Okay, so let me grab these real quick. And move them to the bottom and change them to a color, you know, a different color, green, right? Okay, so there's my instant outline, right? And I would probably, you know, I would probably make a little circle, not a big one, just enough to cover that center up, right? And you know, whoops, let me undo that. Just enough to, you know, cover up that center. Wow, my mouse is just not on cue today. There we go.
Y'all having rain tonight?
We just got done with the storm, but I've got a son who's in Tampa who is losing it.
Well, they just had an announcement. My phone was ringing when I got home, and it was the city calling us to say there was torrential rains and tropical winds up to 45 miles per hour.
And you're in Raleigh, Durham, right?
Yes.
And
okay. So I was out before it started. When you started, I was outside securing everything. I had just gotten home from the country. I cooked a ham and took it out to the family tonight or this afternoon.
Yeah, my son's in Tampa. Well, he's trying to get back to Tampa from Fort Lauderdale and then fly home tomorrow morning, and he's tweaking. Okay, so, you know, originally we had that, you know, deep burgundy color, right? And then when we put the fabric over it, what's going to happen is it's going to mute that, and then we've got our top stitching, right? Now, I don't have to stop there. I can go back into this, you know, offset object and offset this by like 2 millimeters, right? And maybe 2 or 3 times, and, you know, I get a whole different effect put on top of this, right? So, you know, picture this darker, you know, petals underneath, right? That's what you would stitch first. And then, you know, when you put the fabric on, it gets nice and soft and gentle. And, you know, then you have that initial outline. Now, you do have to move these things around, and it is easier to just grab these and move them to the top. Okay? So, and then you can grab these and change the color, or, you know, grab these and group them together. I'm going to go ahead and change the color just so you can see what's going on. Whoops. Okay, so you have that first outline, you know, well, I guess on this one I'd have to do these first and then the green. So you know, you've got this unique little thing. You've got this darker shade underneath, and then you've got these, you know, lines on top that you can do, and you can do them in any color you want. Like white on that crisp organza would look kind of interesting, you know, and almost like an illusion with those lines. So it doesn't always have to be that you're doing this applique technique with fabric, you know. Shadowwork applique is, you know, originally done with some applique, some stitching, and then some stitching on top, right? Why not do stitching on, and then, you know, use that technique to put your fabric over top and create something that's unique. And this would be so much less stressful to create like a whole fabric panel with than doing a bunch of little appliques, right? Because you can do anything you want. Like, you know, pick your green and go in there and grab, you know, your stem stitch. And, you know, why not do something, you know, like this? Right? And, you know, I mean, I would probably adjust that a little bit, but, and then just go, you know, connect the next flower, like, you know, go here and, you know what I mean? Like, you know, it doesn't have to be, you could put another smaller flower here, you could put a bigger flower here, you know, and you could easily create a very large border with this. Okay, so it's not always just about the fabric.
So cool.
Yeah, there's lots of neat things you can do with that technique, right? But, you know, so don't, even if you want to do something like, you know, put this on top, right? You could even do leaves underneath with this contour fill. And, you know, just have a good time with this. But, you know, this I think is kind of interesting because you've got that nice little running stitch on top, which is gentle enough, and this fill is gentle enough for, you know, something that's delicate, right? Even this stitch would be, you know, it's gentle enough for something that's delicate fabric, but it adds some interest and dimension to the design.
Yes, it does. It's beautiful.
And see, Nancy, I know you can do this. Ready? I'm going to show you what to do. Ready?
Sure.
Make a new petal.
Paste yours.
No. So you come over here to your turning angle fill and click on that little fly out and get this, you know, contour fill. And from there, just use your grid, right? Left click at the base of that flower petal, right? And then, you know, start right clicking and use your grid to space this out a little bit better. Whoops, I needed to right click. Hold on. And that right click's going to give you a curve, and then you would come in maybe about to here. You know, you're just going to shape that flower petal, right? And then a little bit closer up here, two right clicks together, and there you go. And from there, you're just going to size it. You know, what size do you want?
And that fills it all in, too.
Yep. And then from there, you're going to select it. And just use your array tool. And we're on 6 right now. I could make that 5.
Where is that tool?
Okay, see up here? Let me see if I can pull this whole toolbar down. I don't know if I can or not. There we go. Okay.
Now, what'd you put? Wait a minute. Show me what you did there to get those other.
I selected the array. Copy to circle.
Where's the array?
Okay, do you see the copy to circle and the number next to it?
Easy layout.
Yep.
Where is that?
I've moved my menus around, but it's probably somewhere around here. Like,
Somewhere, where's
It's
your...
on the bottom.
Is yours on the bottom? Okay, so it'd be down on the bottom, down in here.
It initially is, if you haven't moved it, it's on the bottom.
Okay, easy layout, and then what do I do?
Then you're gonna, like I have my one piece selected, right? So I select it. I select, my copy to circle, which is an array. And I tell it how many of these do I want.
Got you.
So, I could really make, because this is open and running, except down here, I might have to adjust my density on these, right? It says, do I want to merge? Not if I want that overlap effect, right? See? That would be too heavy probably in here. But, that's kind of a unique effect. Let's undo that. If you want to, do this array, and it says, you get your 11 petals and it says, do you want to merge the overlap? And you say yes, that's what you end up with.
Looks like a chrysanthemum.
It kind of does, except that, that's going to be all solid fill. You're going to have to go back in there and you're going to have to, change the fill, and it's all going to go in one direction. So be careful, like, even though this looks like open and airy, right, these are heavier down here. So, if you want to do like 11 petals, it's real simple. Just go into your object details, the little checklist up here, and select this and make it less, less dense, like maybe, let's go with 1.8, right? You just slide it. It's just a hold the left mouse button and slide it kind of feature. Or you can just punch the number in here. All right, so that's going to open that up a little bit. And I'm going to zoom in and show you what you've got going on down here. Okay, see, now that's not too dense, even though when we're at 100% it looks like it is, right? So now you could probably put all 11 petals here and not merge it, and you could probably stitch that out without too much trouble. Okay, see, even that, it's not overly dense, right?
Wow.
But if you stitch that out, it's going to be very dense, don't you think?
I don't know, because if you look, if we really look at it, we're at 100% right now, okay? I'm going to zoom in, and these are just running lines. It may get a little heavier in here, okay? But really, when I look at it, I'm not overly dense. See? Just a little tiny bit right there. But it's still not quite as dense as a regular fill. Now, something else that you guys could try, let me undo that, is you have one petal here, right? I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to paste it, and I'm going to rotate that. Oh, you know what? I should do it the right way. I'm going to left-click on it again and then just move that point down to here, right? And go ahead and rotate that around. Okay, so, and I'm going to change the color because, you can do this. It's your design. You can do whatever you want. Okay, so I can select this one, and I can do the array. I won't do 11. I'll do more like, maybe 4, right? So there's my array with 4. Okay, and then I can select this, and I can do my array with 4. Okay. So picture this is a little bit darker, this is a little bit lighter, and I'll just use the pink. And well, it's hard to see until you stitch it because it's going to be more dense once you stitch it. So I'll use blue. So you've got like a little bit of toning and shading going on here.
I want you to get off so that I can start stitching that.
Now, if you want to do something like this even with those two-tone colors, which I think is kind of interesting, right? And put, just make them deeper, like make this a deeper blue, right? Deeper turquoise. I think that would be really very pretty. And you don't have to use flowers, just flowers. You can use, a ton of other things, right? But now this is the point where I would put my fabric over top, And then I would come over here to my little circle and say make a contour circle even.
I
And
don't get the concept of putting the fabric over top.
it makes it look real, almost,
But you're not removing that. That's part of the garment. You're not cutting it.
right, you're not cutting it. What it is it makes it look very delicate and dainty, and, you know, so it gives it kind of like a floating effect, you know, like a really
All right,
soft,
let me ask,
dreamy floating effect.
all right, if you are making
Nancy,
yes,
think of a little girl's dress that's light pink, and then it has like an overlay of white on top of it. You know how they used to have little bows in the
yes,
back, and you'd have this
yes.
little light pink dress, and then this would be on top, and you'd have these designs, and that overlay, that second layer of dress, would just be tacked down over the designs.
Okay, but then when you made the
Can
dress,
you see that?
yes, when you made the dress, you would, say you're doing the skirt,
Uh-huh.
you'd have to put both pieces of fabric
Yep.
to do the skirt.
Right. You would take, like,
Okay.
picture you had like the top of the skirt, and then you have that skirt bottom where, you know, you see the little scallops on those dresses, like the top layer
Yes.
scallops into the bottom. And
Yes.
you've got those two light layers of fabric, but they're sheer, and, you know, you'll see sometimes people will drop like silk flower petals in them as well and seal them in there by sewing them.
I got you now.
Okay.
I keep thinking of applique, and you know, you cut your layers out.
Right. This is going to be very soft and very muted, and you know, if you're doing it with fabric, it involves 3 layers of fabric: your base fabric, your applique fabric, and then that top sheer layer. But you don't have to use fabric. You can use embroidery underneath it, or you can use a combination. And then when you put that on top, you know, you don't just want that layer flopping around. So when you put that on top, you're going to do something to, you know, like generally it's tracing around the outline. What we did was, you know, we decided to go bold and, you know, do this offset of 2 millimeters and 3 times and get this kind of unique little effect, right?
All right. I guess I understand. I'm not really seeing the clear picture, but I will.
Okay.
I
But
don't know. Is there a book that comes with this Digitizing EX?
there is. It's on your CD.
Thank you.
And that's, so if you go, there should be a PDF manual on your CD.
I think I have it somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I
And
do.
you might have installed it. If you installed it at the beginning, there's an online manual. Okay, there's online help, and then there's an online manual. And the online manual, you know, it's a PDF, right?
Right.
And, you know, it's got like little bookmarks, okay? So you can, introduction to digitizing, you
I
know.
think I paid to have that. I think I have that.
Mm-hmm. So,
And then, no, I don't have it.
and, well, if you go to your CD, you can still install it. You know, you can still, you know, put this in, right? But, or you can just access it and print out the sections that you want. It's kind of large when you really look at the number of pages. There's I didn't have to, there's 285 pages. So,
Oh my stars.
I would print it in sections of what you think you need. Like, you know, do you need, you know, how to install, or, you know, how to put your dongle in? You don't need that section. You know, do you need introduction to embroidery? Probably not. The basics, I would read through the basics and see if, you know, if you need the basics or not. And here's a little plus symbol so you can look at what it says. Getting started, using commands. You know, this might be a nice section to print just so you have the commands, right?
Right.
But there's also a glossary that you can go through, okay? And it'll give you some of the terminology for embroidery. I don't know if all, you know, how much is in here, but it's going to be kind of like the terminology for the program, some embroidery terminology, and, you know, but it's going to pertain more to what their program is capable of doing more so than, you know, different techniques, right? See, security device, screen resolution, slow redraw, you know. So it's giving you some definitions, you know. So, but that's on the online, you know, it's going to be help and then online manual, but you also have help and online help. Okay, and this is, you know, this is a little more searchable, right? Like Applique.
Right.
You know, Applique, see also Applique, cover stitch settings, grading objects, you know. And if you double click on those, it'll show you, you know, the different, you know, different things for Applique, right?
All right, go on with your lesson.
So anyway, so just something to think about with this, and they're quick. Like, to me, this is a quick little design, right?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't take long to make, and it's fun, and it's, you know, other than resequencing your objects, like, you know, you would want the petals to stitch first, right? And you guys know if you open up your object thing and hold your control key, right, you can select the petals and move them into, you know, the top stitching order, right? And that's just control, you know, control. And, you know, so you can move these up to the top so you can control where things stitch. That's probably the most work that you've done in here. And these, you know, I would probably change these colors. Well, no, I guess we don't really have to, because when you go back to colors, here's the two layers that we're going to stitch on the bottom. Here's the top layers, which are going to be, you know, we're going to stitch as that outline, so we'll mute those colors a little bit, okay? And, you know, this is just that little center section I did in a, you know, I made it in a spiral fill at this point, but, you know, you could make it whatever you wanted. So, you know, these two would stitch first, then you would put your fabric on top, right? And then you would stitch these to hold everything in place and highlight the design. And then this is just decorative. You know, as a matter of fact, I'll change that to solid so you can see it. See, it's just decorative. So that's kind of, you know, does that explain shadow applique a little bit better?
Yeah.
Yes.
The hardest part probably about shadow applique is deciding what goes underneath and what you want on top. You know, because you don't want everything underneath. You know, the point of it is to make some things look floaty, and then you still want to have some detail on the outside to highlight that and to attach that fabric down. So you guys have any more questions?
I like it.
Barbara, I wish you lived next door.
Me too. Except you're getting that hurricane or tropical storm.
Right.
I'm curious. I went out and moved all my plants and got everything anchored down. Because when they start calling on you on the phone, they are aware of something more than we are.
Yeah, it's I know when it didn't even land in Tampa, and it was pretty bad. And you know, they haven't shut down the airport, but there were a lot of flight delays. There have been a lot of flight delays out of Atlanta, and it's all due to that storm. And there were tornadoes that touched down in Tampa.
Well, they said that it was going to come right up and going to be in Rocky Mount.
Oh,
But
wow.
I didn't hear when it was going to be here, but
Right up the coast. Yeah, it was going to be on land. You shouldn't be too bad. It shouldn't be. I'd be more afraid of the tornadoes from it than the wind and the rain.
Right. They
Although
said,
you are going to get a lot of rain.
yeah, you're going to get a
Yes.
ton of rain, and then they said it was weakening when it hit ground. But what happened in Tampa was the water spouts came aground and turned into tornadoes.
Yeah.
Hmm. So
Well, why don't you guys just come to Phoenix?
true, that's true. Except that it's really hot
Yeah.
out there right now.
Yes.
Well, yes, but you just stay inside.
well, I'm going
And you
to ask
have monsoon season.
Well, yeah, but it's not as bad as your hurricanes and tornadoes.
Yeah,
Would
that's
you
probably
please
true.
tell
I
me
mean,
something?
I don't know. Some of those thunderstorms,
Okay, Miss Nancy, what do you
you have
need?
some doozy thunderstorms out there.
I want to know what
those dirt
is
clouds come up. It's bad.
wrong with the people in Arizona that they could not find that Jodi Arias guilty.
I thought she was found guilty.
She was
She was
guilty,
guilty. It was the other one, the one that killed the mom.
the man stabbed him 29 times and slit his throat.
Yeah, she was
Wasn't
found
she
guilty.
guilty?
Yeah, she was
Yeah.
found guilty.
She was guilty.
Yeah, she was
but
found
they
guilty.
couldn't- But they've got to have a retrial.
Why?
They couldn't
No,
decide
that's
what
the- they're having a-
sentence her.
Oh,
They
it's,
couldn't agree on a sentence.
He didn't decide on the death penalty.
Yes.
oh.
Yeah.
So they're going into the death penalty phase now. Okay.
I wish they'd hang her by her toenails.
I mean, it's real simple.
It really
It's
is,
that-
but there was one holdout.
It's that other one.
Yeah. You know, it's kind of tough
There was another
sometimes.
trial where a woman killed a model. She got off.
Oh, wow. Huh. Well,
Yeah.
don't
enough,
They had all
enough
kinds
about
of
the
DNA
news.
evidence. Still got off.
Enough about
Next
the
on-
news, ladies.
Next on the program,
So, okay, now we're going into the next session is lace. So we're doing lace on a net, and then we're going to do standalone lace. So, how many of you guys did your purse? I know Barbara did. As a matter of fact, let's go in and look at Barbara's purse, because I don't think we looked.
Nancy doesn't do stuff like that.
Oh, Nancy does stuff like that.
I've had stuff on my mind here lately, but
Well, you were sick for a while.
Yeah, I'll get some of it going.
Okay, oh, we did look at your purse, and very good job. So this was the purse.
Oh, yes, Barbara, I
yeah,
remember.
that's very pretty.
Mm-hmm. Did a very good job.
Lovely.
So, and I'm trying to think, we've done applique. We did, I can't remember what the first section was. Do you guys remember?
Standalone lace.
No, that's coming next. We're doing lace on a base.
Motifs.
We did
Just
motifs.
motifs?
That's right, we did the motifs. And
Lace on a base.
lace on a base is next, and then lace standalone lace. And, you know,
So
so,
we're ahead and expressive.
right, your guys are a little bit ahead and expressive.
And which lesson is this one?
This one is just the applique review.
Okay.
So now I'm going to see, to me, I think this would be really pretty. I'm looking at this design and I'm thinking, you know, it's so simple. And other than resequencing my colors, right, I'm thinking you could make really a pretty cool border with this, right? And it wouldn't take much to line it up. She
Yes.
figure, just going to copy that and, well, let me group it. Makes it easier to move. So other than resequencing, you could do, you know, you could make these any size you wanted, right? But picture a border going down a shirt, and then you're connecting it with, you know, delicate lacy leaves, right? Or, you know, like we have that stem stitch. So you could actually come in, and your stem
Yeah.
stitch doesn't have to be green. You can make it any color you want. Right? You can
That
make
really
it
is
blue.
quite lovely.
Mm-hmm. And then, you know, you can do the same thing with the leaves, right? Only, I think with the leaves, I would do something a little different. I think with a leaf, I would make one leaf, and I'd make it, you know, kind of scrolly, right? Well, you know what? This might be easier. Make it a little bit scrolly. So you're going to make like half of it, right? Because you want it to have, you know, lots of dimension. But you could make this really kind of, you know, scrolly. And, you know, so now you just make the other half of the leaf, right? And you're going to line it up. Oh, probably should have angled those a little bit better. And we'll fix that in a second. Okay, so let me go in and fix the angle line so that we have, you know, a little more kind of dimension. My leaf is not very leafy looking, huh?
No, it kind of looks more like a peanut.
Looks like a peanut.
Yeah. Oh, well, what can I say?
But that's okay. You can change it.
True. And we're going to squish it in a second and make it look more leafy. But, you know, see, I can kind of control, well, I can't control it as much, but I can control what it looks like where, you know, some of the dimension comes up, you know what I mean? All right, so let me select this and we'll, oh wait, I guess I just need to, we'll change that to green. And we'll squish that down, see if it looks a little more leafy. Yeah, it looks kind of like it got, you know, twisted Nancy's tornado there, but you know, so, but you guys get the idea, right?
Yeah, I think if you make your end a little bit more pointed.
Yeah, I was looking at that and it's like, yeah, that could use some pointing. Hold on, let me zoom in.
Yeah.
Okay, now let's see what that looks like. That's what I get for trying to be fancy, huh? There we go. So you can even make these
Well,
leaves
that's better.
nice and airy, and, you know, just because you've overlapped, you've got that little center section there, or you could put, you know, a stem up there if you want. And, you know, but I think this would be really cute as like a border. You think even if you just did one panel of a blouse with this, I think it would be very pretty. So you guys have any questions on the applique or the motifs or anything we've done so far?
I'm good.
You guys are all good, so
Yeah, I'm good.
you guys are motifing
Okay.
out, because if you really think about it, you could use, you know, the motifs that we've made as well, right? I'm just going to kind of scroll something in here. I know Nancy loves those motifs. You could do candle wicking. I know Nancy likes the candle wicking. You can make a candle wick line on this too, Nancy. Nancy's very quiet. You still there? Nancy?
She must have left.
I'm wondering. I'm doing, you know, this is kind of neat too. You know, you can do anything you want, you know, in addition to this. And to me, the French knots just really go together with heirloom, right? But, you know, don't rule out the other things that we've done. Like, you know, there's no reason you can't come in here and do a motif and, you know, go into your motifs and pick one that you like. Right?
Right. Those candle wicking would look really pretty with you if you use the same color as your organdy. You know, just the white kind of outline it.
White on white.
It'd be pretty.
And, you know, so you
White
can
on
do,
white on white.
you know, you can do lots of different things with this. And, you know, even don't forget your scallops, right? You know, because we did the scallops as well. So, you know, don't forget, I mean, this would not be a good line for the scallops, but, you know, don't forget to do, you know, like scallops on the edge of it or something, right? You know, don't forget all of those motifs that we did, or don't be afraid to make your own motif, all right? And, you know, like this you could even make, I think this would be cute as, you know, just a French knots, right? And I'm going to space mine a little bit closer together. So you can do all kinds of neat things.
That's beautiful.
See, she is there. So, you know, I mean, just don't ever rule out the other things. Or if you really, want to do something different and you want to applique, then, use your flower petals. Do something. Let me get rid of all the rest of this stuff. You could even do something like this. Okay, take those flower petals that we made, right? Do your, offset at 0 or minus, 0.1, right? And make it, offset count of 1. Okay, so now what I've got is this. I've got these flower petals right here. And I'm going to move those up to the top. I am going to treat them like an applique. I would reorder these so that, they're a little more like that goes there, if you wanted to. Basically, this is going to be your placement, right? So you've got bing, bing, bing. This should go up there next, and then this, and yeah, this one. Okay, so that's now my placement, right? So here's my placement. I'm going to group it, copy and paste it, change the color, to, this is your placement, this is now your tack down, right? Why not put, a fabric underneath this and then stitch these flowers on top, right? These petals on top, and make them even a little more open. So you could, you could put a dark fabric underneath it, or you could put, a pink or a green and make all of the petals pink. You could do all of those things, stitch on top of it, because that applique is going nowhere, right? And then put your organza on top of it and stitch around it as well. So there's plenty of options to try. Just, don't be nervous about doing it. Like, I would stitch this flower out before I would commit to a whole big panel on a dress, right? But if you remember that original lace that we looked at, this is, well, it's not like lacy. It's still, lacy enough to give that illusion of, a lacy type of design. And you can always resize these.
Now, what you just copy and pasted?
I'm just copying and pasting. I'm not worried about, like, putting them in any kind of order, right? And once I copy them, I can just paste them again. I would group them together and then, ungroup them after you moved them and reorder them. But, picture, remember our original design that we looked at for, one of those, first designs had flowers that were, kind of bunched up like this, right? So, you could do, picture this. Picture a layer of organza. You applique a darker flower on top of it, and then, you cover it with those open contour fills, right? The blue and the pink. Then you put another layer of organza and stitch around it, and that's going to look like you've got, just layers floating. It's going to be pretty sheer, but I think that would be really pretty, applied to like the bottom of, a skirt, or the bottom of, a shirt for summer especially, right? So, don't rule out
So you would
experimenting.
use the organza as your base fabric and the cover fabric.
Right. So you get something that's very sheer, and light. And, the only thing is, like, once you copy and paste all of these, you're going to have to reorder these layers, right? That's why the colors are really kind of important.
Right.
Like, I can look at this and know that, okay, this, this is here's my placement, here's my cover, right? Hold my control key, placement, cover, just ungroup it if you have to. And move all of those to stitch at the beginning, and then move your color layers into position. And, so that's going to be the hardest, the hardest part is reorganizing everything. But if you do it flower by flower, it's not going to take you very long, right?
Right.
Right.
Love it.
Yeah, I think it'd just be really pretty. Even, even if you, did something like, for your table in the summer, a sheer table runner with these little flowers sandwiched in there, I think would be very pretty.
Would be.
Mm-hmm.
Very pretty. Or on the corners of a tablecloth, on each corner of a tablecloth.
Right. Or, the edge of a napkin, one of the smaller ones, or, I mean, you could do really anything you wanted. But I think it'd be really pretty because it's just so, 2 layers of organza are just very sheer,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So there's lots you can do with that technique. And, the same with like the window pane technique, right? Where you're cutting, it's like reverse applique, and you're cutting out a section of organza. If you really wanted to, get fancy, right? Let me get rid of all of these.
Mm-hmm.
With that technique, you could use, you have your base fabric, right? Let me kind of move that out of the way. I'm just going to make a quick shape. And, you're going to cut out this neat little window pane section, right? You're going to put the organza behind it so it's see-through, but, not wimpy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so, why not take, well, let me get out of that. Why not take one of those flowers and do shadow work applique on, your Australian window pane technique, right? I mean, there's no law that says you can't stitch, or there's no law that says you can't put 2 layers of something as your Australian window pane. The only thing that that technique requires, it's like reverse applique. The only difference is it's just with sheer fabric. So you could do anything you wanted. You could dress this up any way you wanted. You can use your motifs. You can use your, French knots.
So the main difference between reverse applique and Australian window pane is the fabric you're using.
That's it.
Do I understand that right?
That's exactly it.
Well, let me ask you this.
Uh-huh.
I still don't get the concept of the organdy. If I wanted to do it on the ends of a tablecloth,
Uh-huh.
on a piece of nice linen,
Uh-huh. You could. You could just do it like applique instead of, instead of, like, here's my placement, right? Let me ungroup that. Remember, here's my placement, here's my tack down, and then I'm going to use that open fill for the cover, right? Because it doesn't matter if the fabric frays, there's so many stitches on it, it definitely isn't going to move anywhere, right? And then I could put, that little echo around it. I can do that without doing the shadow work applique. Shadow work applique is just a technique that it makes everything look soft and tender and gentle and, it just...
feminine.
Right. Like, it just makes everything look soft and muted. That's why you use, like, if you want pink, you use red. But it even though that's showing through as pink, it's still a very soft kind of pink. You know what I mean? And there's just something, trying to think how to describe it. There's just something that makes it look almost fairy princessy. Does that make sense?
Yes, delicate.
Right.
All right, darling.
So, you guys good? I'm gonna see all this applique homework pretty soon, right?
Sure.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Now, what's the next?
You
now,
want one of each, right?
One of each, right? Yeah, and then you know what else you could do if you really think about it, if you feel inventive, on your Australian window pane, you could use that reverse applique, which is the same as Australian window pane. The only difference is it's done with sheer fabric. why not take something and do a wing needle fill design, put this on top of it, so you've got that wing needle all poked and open underneath it, and treat it like a reverse applique or Australian window pane. You know, so you've got that light, airy look. Like, that would be perfect for your linen tablecloth, Nancy.
Mm-hmm.
And you could do it in the center. You could make it as big as you want in the middle. You could put it on the corners. You could do a big diamond in the middle and then smaller diamonds off to the side. You could do all kinds of neat things with it. So don't forget, like, the motifs and the wing needles that we did. Oh, yeah, by the way, you asked me about double needle, right? I think it was you, Nancy, that asked me about stitching with the twin needle.
Right.
And there is a twin needle that you can use to embroider with on the machines, but it's different than your standard twin needle. The post is on, if you're looking at the needle, the post is on the left side and the needles shift over to the right.
Right.
And
Right.
Janome sells those, but they used to also be sold for one of the Elna sergers. So you ask your dealer, you have Elegant Stitches. I bet Elegant Stitches would know exactly what needle you're talking about. It's the Schmetz needle.
Yes, I've got them.
Okay.
I've got
Those,
them.
you just have to slow the machine down and play with your tension. And you can, you know, even on the Exquisite, you can embroider, but I would slow the machine way down.
Yes, I do most things on it slow because of my fingers.
Yeah, but you know, so but you can do that. So, and it is it's kind of an interesting technique, especially if you want to add a little metallic to something.
Right.
So, all right, ladies, if no more questions,
I'm good.
you're good. So I'm going to see lots and lots and lots of homework, right?
I'm good. Lots of homework.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.